Hey guys, what's up? Reservoir Dogs 521, back to bring you part 4 of my top 50 favorite movies of all time. In this video we will be covering movies 20 through 11, and I want to apologize for the, 2-week hiatus I took between parts 3 and 4. I had some computer technical difficulties I was just working out, that's all, so I got it fixed now. It was just my monitor was glitching out on me, so, but now that all that's said and done, before we start the video, I also want to, put out a couple honorable mentions, because just over these last 2 weeks, I saw 2 movies that I feel like had I seen them before I started the series of videos, would have made the list, and they are Dead Poets Society and Her. I'm debating whether or not I would put Her on the list, because as great of a movie as I thought it was really difficult to watch. It was like, it broke my heart watching it, I gotta say. That movie really emotionally hit me. But Dead Poet Society, I know without a doubt would have made the list, you know. But it's tricky though, because the logical thing to do would be, to kick off my number 50 to make room for it. But my number 50 is There Will Be Blood. But There Will Be Blood isn't at number 50 for quality reasons. It's only there because I've only seen it once, and I wanted to put it on the list for sure. But because I'd only seen it once, I didn't truly know where it would rank. So I was just like, throw it at number 50. So I mean, realistically, if I had to kick a movie off the list, it would probably be something like, maybe Sky High, Sky High, maybe Finding Nemo, 40-Year-Old Virgin, one of the ones in the 50 through 41 section. But without a doubt, 2 amazing, incredible movies. Wish I could have put them on the list, but there's only 50 spots. So with that all said, let's start this list with number 20. At number 20, we have the coolest heist movie you will see, without a doubt, in my opinion. We got Heat. Of course, this stars Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in a funny role reversal. De Niro actually plays the bad guy, and Pacino plays the good guy. We're used to seeing De Niro play bad guys, but it's kind of funny to see Pacino play a cop in this one. It's different, but it works. It works really well. This is basically just about these 2 guys and their 2 teams, Pacino and, his police force, and De Niro and his group of, these guys that pull off heists, including, Val Kilmer, in a great supporting role. It's basically just these 2 sides pitted against each other. Pacino is trying to plot these guys' moves, but De Niro's too smart for him. He's outsmarting him at every turn, and this movie has some fantastic action sequences, with especially this scene, this big shootout down the street, which, the protocol, I heard one of the shootout scenes in this movie was, they followed protocol so well that they actually show it to, U.S. Marines, in training. This is the correct way to take cover when you're under fire, It's just, they put so much precision into this. The gunshots in this movie feel real, they sound extremely real. And then the showdown in this movie, there's a showdown between, De Niro and Pacino, or I shouldn't say a showdown, but, a meeting that they have. I believe it's, one of the only times they're on screen together in the entire movie, and they meet in a diner, kind of similar to, the scene in Looper, when Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt meet in a diner. But just the dialogue in the scene, and the way these 2, the incredible acting by the 2 of them, makes for, one of the tensest scenes in movie history, and it's fantastic. Great heist movie, and one of the best crime movies I think ever made. At number 19, we have The Hateful Eight. Now, this is the second of 5 Tarantino movies you will see on this list, and I think The Hateful Eight is honestly really underrated. A lot of people don't pit it with some of Tarantino's greatest. They don't pit it with Inglourious Basterds or Kill Bill. But I personally believe that this is, in terms of dialogue and tension building, this is one of Tarantino's masterpieces, without a doubt. I mean, it's my 4th favorite movie of his, for sure. Samuel L. Jackson gives one of the best performances of his career. Bruce Stern is great in a supporting role. All of the roles in this movie are great. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Walton Goggins especially. He's probably my favorite actor in this movie. He gives an incredible standout performance as the possibly but maybe not sheriff of Red Rock, Like I said, the dialogue in this movie is just exquisite, and I use that word and I sound like a pretentious a-hole right now, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's exquisite. The whole setting, the cinematography in this movie is fantastic. It's amazing that a movie set entirely in a cabin that lasts 3 hours long can hold my amazement for as long as The Hateful Eight does. But it does it so well. Like I said, the cinematography is fantastic. All the shots, the landscape shots of the snow and of the carriage, going through all these different terrains. The soundtrack by Ennio Morricone is fantastic as always. This movie has like two of my favorite, like Tarantino soundtracks are my thing. I listen to them a lot, and two of my all-time favorite Tarantino like songs from Tarantino movies are in this one. They are Jim Jones at Botany Bay, that Jennifer Jason Leigh sings amazingly, and There Won't Be Many Coming Home, which of course is the song that ends the movie. But yeah, like I said, watch this movie for the dialogue alone, guys. I mean, there's so many great... This movie is like an experience almost, the way it's, the way they filmed it using like real film, the 70mm thing. This movie is more of an experience than a movie, and every time I watch it, I've seen it like 4 times in the last, and it's only been out for like 2 years. That really says a lot that I've seen a 3-hour movie, which are usually pretty tough to get through because of how long they are. I've seen it 4 times, and the movie hasn't even been out for 2 years yet. So that really speaks highly of the movie. Definitely check this one out. It's one of Tarantino's finest. At number 18, we have just a fun movie. We have Office Space. This movie just goes down in my books as being one of the most hilarious movies ever made. This movie kind of pokes fun at, the life of, people just working in an office job, all the people that you work with, all the, the stereotypical, office people. You have the loud receptionist lady, the loud receptionist lady that kind of like sits across from him, and then you have the really monotone boss, okay, Peter, I'm gonna need you to come in on Saturday, if that's alright, that'd be great. This movie just tackles all those is stereotype the right word? I feel like there's a better word, but yeah, it tackles them all really well. I haven't even had a job myself, so I guess I'm not really a fan of this movie because I can relate to it. Just the comedy in this movie just really works well. This is Mike Judge, same guy who did, Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. But yeah, it's essentially this guy, Peter Gibbons, who's played by Ron Livingston, who he works this ordinary basic office job, and he just hates his life. He even says at one point in the movie, every day I wake up and it's the worst day of my life, every single day. And until one day he meets with a therapist and he just snaps, it clicks with him, because this guy does like this hypnosis thing on him, and he just stops caring about his job, he stops caring about his life, and this new attitude that he gets basically leads to him getting promoted, and it leads to him kind of moving farther in life. And then the series of events, him and his friends get this idea to screw off the company, and it ends up backfiring on them majorly. And it's a really, really funny movie, guys. It's got some really great just hilarious scenes and performances, and the infamous printer scene where they smash the printer in slow-mo set to the Ghetto Boys song. That's from this movie. But it's just an all-out hilarious movie, and it's one of those movies I can rewatch over and over and over again. So definitely check out Office Space. That'd be great. At number 17, we have Fargo. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this one coming. This is, in my opinion, the greatest Coen Brothers movie. This is my favorite movie by them. Now, that being said, I've only seen 4 Coen Brothers movies. I've seen Fargo, I've seen No Country for Old Men, Raising Arizona, and The Big Lebowski. No Country for Old Men was close to making this list, but I really believe Fargo is their masterpiece. This movie, essentially, it's such a weird... I mean, at times it's a drama, at times it's a comedy. I mean, at times it's just kind of like, a movie just kind of poking fun at Midwestern life. But all these elements combined, and then the soundtrack in this movie, just kind of the instrumental score that plays throughout. There's not like much of an actual soundtrack, but like the instrumental score. And then the performances by the actors, it all just works really well. It creates this really weird, quirky, dramedy, I guess would probably be the right word, a dark comedy, that's the word I'm thinking of, yeah, dark comedy. It essentially follows William H. Macy's character, who hires, I know the characters' names, but just for sake of, whatever, I'll just say the actors' names. William H. Macy's character hires Steve Buscemi and his partner to fake kidnap his wife, so that way his rich father-in-law will pay them ransom money, and Steve Buscemi and his partner and William H. Macy will each split half of that ransom money, so that way the guys doing the job get this half of the money, and William H. Macy gets the other half of the money to start this new business that he's been working on. But of course, this movie follows the trope that anything that will go wrong, or anything that can go wrong, will go wrong. That's exactly what happens. And then you follow this, the second half of this movie follows the police force, and then Frances McDormand's character, who's kind of, working the case and everything, and just their weird, Midwestern life. And being from Minnesota myself, it's just, it kind of adds more to this movie. It's just more fun to watch, knowing that this is what other people are forever gonna think of your state. They're just gonna think, oh yeah, you betcha, but but yeah, this is my favorite Coen Brothers movie, guys. I really like the cinematography is fantastic. I really like the story in this one, and it's just overall a really fun movie to watch, for sure, without a doubt. It's not too serious, but it's not too funny either. It's a well-grounded, it's a nice balance of the two genres, and it does it really well. At number 16, we have Django Unchained. Now, of course, this is the third of 5 Tarantino movies you'll see on this list. This was the first time Tarantino really delved into the Western genre, and he did it fantastically. I mean, this is up there with some of the best Westerns of all time. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Unforgiven. Django Unchained belongs right up there with them. This movie, of course, that's helped in part to Tarantino's, signature style, his overuse of blood and gore, the exploding blood shots, during the shootout scenes and everything. His signature, style, like behind the camera, he's got some signature types of filmmaking that he has, just different Tarantino-isms sprinkled throughout this movie. But even take those away, take the stylistic choices away, you still have a great revenge tale of a man trying to find his wife, and while also getting revenge on the people that enslaved him. Not enough people, I think, really give credit to Jamie Foxx in this movie, because even though Christoph Waltz and Leonardo DiCaprio give fantastic performances as well, Jamie Foxx really carried this movie with all of the scenes he had. I thought he did a fantastic job as Django. He just made a really likable main character, especially the line, kill white folk and get paid for it. What's not to love, or something along those lines. But it's a hilarious line. And this movie actually, even though it touched on slavery and had some brutal scenes, this movie was a little bit funnier than some Tarantino movies as well. The friendship between King Schultz and Django was really realized that you could really feel their friendship and their partnership. And I like that he kind of viewed him almost as like Schultz viewed him as like an equal as the movie went on, and I really appreciate that. I thought they did a great job with their friendship in this movie. DiCaprio gives one of the scariest performances and one of the most hateful performances of his entire career, I would say. Probably the worst. Worst in terms of like the most horrible character. It's certainly one of the best performances, but in terms of the character is just awful. Of course, like I said, the Candyland shootout is fantastic. The soundtrack in this movie, and I'm not even talking about like the Ennio Morricone stuff, which is fantastic, but just some of the tracks, like the song Freedom, Unchained, I think, is one of the songs. It's like a mixture of like James Brown and Tupac. There were some really great songs in this movie, without a doubt. I Got a Name, another great one, an oldie but a goodie. And just overall, this movie, once again, similar to The Hateful Eight, it's just an experience. Tarantino only releases a movie every 2-3 years, it seems. Ever since, I think, it seems like ever since Inglourious Basterds, it's every 2 or 3 years, 3-4 years, it seems like he releases a new movie, and it really shows that he's taking 2 to 3 years to work on it, because they always turn out amazing. And the Hateful Eight, we're just talking about Django Unchained here. Django Unchained is no exception. This is a fantastic addition to the Western genre, and I feel like this is really what reopened people's eyes to Tarantino. Inglourious Basterds was great and all, but I think Django Unchained connected more with mainstream audiences, even more so than that one did. So, Django Unchained, you got my vote for number 16. At number 15, we have Boogie Nights. This is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Like I said earlier about There Will Be Blood, I told you there'd be another Paul Thomas Anderson movie on here, and here it is. Really a testament to the director, too. I've only seen 2 of his movies, and they're both in my top 50, which is says a lot about him. But Boogie Nights, it's kind of difficult I have to tread lightly when I'm talking about this one, because I know my audience is generally younger kids. But the plot of this movie is basically it follows Mark Wahlberg's character, as well as a bunch of characters, actually. It's, it's more so a character-driven piece, it focuses on all these different subplots and different characters. But it essentially focuses on the pornography industry in the 1970s, and kind of the downfall of it, and what leads to kind of what this does to all these characters' lives. And this movie isn't on there for that. I promise you, the plot of it, I know, makes it sound like, it might dissuade you. It dissuaded me, but my dad kept telling me, you gotta watch this movie. I know you don't want to watch it because, you think it's gonna be uncomfortable to watch, but it's not about that. And I took his word for it, and he was right. It really doesn't focus on, it doesn't glorify the sex scenes or anything like that. It really doesn't. There's, maybe one or two scenes in this movie that are uncomfortable to watch, and both of them aren't even that long, if I'm being completely honest. The one in particular that I can remember is maybe 5 minutes long, and that's 5 minutes out of a 2.5-hour movie. This movie mainly focuses on the characters and just how these characters' lives get worse and worse because this business is tearing them apart. This business filled with sex and, drugs, because it's set in the 70s and 80s, so, cocaine is, a big part of, a lot of the characters struggle with cocaine addiction and whatnot. And, the thing I love the most about this movie is I think this is probably the best character study I've ever seen in my life. It's one of those movies where it takes this group of characters that start in this one place, and then it ends with all of them in a completely different place, and for the most part, they're all just at the lowest point in their lives. Some of the characters don't even live till the end. I mean, some of them don't survive this whole experience. But like I said, this movie is a really, really well-made character study, and do not let the subject matter dissuade you from watching it, because I promise you, it is fantastic filmmaking. There's some really great follow shots in this movie, or continuous shots, that follow the characters through different areas of the, different nightclubs and stuff. The cinematography is fantastic. This is Mark Wahlberg's first breakout role, I believe, and I still believe it's probably one of his best, if not his best role he's ever done. And yeah, like I said, a fantastic character drama that really delves deep into this industry and how it can tear these people's lives apart. So definitely check this one out, guys. In my opinion, it's Paul Thomas Anderson's best of the 2 movies I've seen of his. At number 14, we have Ghostbusters, and of course I'm talking about the 1984 original, not the remake. But this movie, the concept for this movie was so genius. These 4 guys, take their scientific abilities to basically start killing, or to basically start, capturing ghosts, and, take these gadgets and, basically, use their services across New York. It's such a great concept, and they really could have done it, in a horror way. They could have done it comedy. They could have done this movie, in a dramatic genre, too. But I just love the fact that they took it in a comedy direction, because I really think that's what makes this movie stand out above a lot of comedies from the 80s, is that it's such a genius concept, but it's also a really funny movie. This movie isn't just relying on the fact that it's a great concept. The execution is amazing, too. The 4 Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson, the chemistry between these 4 actors is fantastic. Bill Murray carries the movie, I won't deny that, but all of them do a fantastic job. I was always kind of annoyed that Ernie Hudson's character just kind of came onto the scene halfway through the movie. I almost feel like they should have made him a scientist at the beginning too, because he doesn't get nearly as many scenes doing the ghost busting as the other 3 do. But either way, I mean, that's the only flaw with this movie. The special effects might not hold up as well today, but I'll take them over the really clean-looking effects of the remake, for example, let's say, because they transport you back to that time of practical effects. And like I said, they're ghosts. They shouldn't. There's Slimer and everything. They shouldn't look all clean and pristine looking like the new ones do. They should look kind of dirty like the original effects made them look. But yeah, the showdown in this movie is hilarious. The whole thing with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's one of the best third acts I've ever seen in a movie for sure. I absolutely love it. The dialogue's fantastic. All the casting is great, especially Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver. I haven't even mentioned them yet. They're great. And it's undoubtedly one of the best comedy films ever made, in my opinion. At number 13, we have what's going to be a controversial pick, especially considering I'm putting it this high, but it's Napoleon Dynamite. Like I said, I know people are gonna think this dumb comedy from the early 2000s, it's really just a character going, freaking idiot, an entire movie. Like, how did that rank so high in its list? But I really think it's more than that. I think this movie is just a really great, I think it has some really great themes and messages in it, especially, the scenes with, like, Napoleon, Deb, and Pedro. The movie's, like, themes about friendship and everything. It just really touches me, it really hits me. And I think this is a really, really overlooked comedy movie. It's a really sweet movie. I think that's probably the best way to put it. It's not just a dumb comedy. Yeah, there's of course the famous scenes of Napoleon asking for his chapstick, but that's not really what makes it one of my favorite movies. Those scenes I think are kind of, they're not nearly the best scenes in the movie. They're just the most famous scenes. The best scenes of the movie are like some of the more subtle comedy moments, like the time machine scene, you forgot to put in the crystals. Scenes like that, I burst out laughing every time. Those more subtle scenes I think are really underrated. All the scenes where, like, Uncle Rico's, like, going on about how he could have gone to state back in '82, where he's, like, throwing footballs at, like, a camera. But ultimately, this movie isn't on here, like I said, just for those dumb jokes. It's on here because I think this is a really well-made comedy with heart, and I think it has some fantastic characters, especially Napoleon, and Deb, and Uncle Rico are probably the three best characters in the movie. The dance scene, of course, is iconic, and like I said, overall, it's just one of the most underrated comedy movies I think ever made, and I think people take this movie for granted. I don't think people realize just how, I don't think people realize just how great this movie really is. It's more than just a dumb comedy, it's a great comedy with heart as well. At number 12, we have The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is, in my opinion, the best Batman movie ever made. But I feel weird saying that, because I don't really think of this movie as a Batman movie, or as a superhero movie, I should say. I think when people say, this is the best superhero movie ever made, I don't think so. And I say that only because I don't really think of this movie as a superhero movie. It's not. It's a crime thriller, a crime drama. That just happens to have characters who in the comics have superpowers, but in this movie they have no such thing, This movie's strengths really come in its storytelling, its excuse that voice crack, I've been talking a lot. It's directing, it's acting, my god, Heath Ledger aside, like, we all know that Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker is without a doubt one of the best performances by anybody in any movie ever, for sure. But Christian Bale is awesome as Bruce Wayne and Batman, even though the Batman voice is a little stupid, where are they? Michael Caine as Alfred, Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, the guy that plays Harvey Dent, I'm struggling to remember his name, I'm going to IMDb it as I'm talking, but like I said, the direction of this movie by Christopher Nolan is just fantastic, and the actor's name I'm thinking of is Aaron Eckhart, that's his name. I just watched him in Sully the other day, so I was like, I should know this. I should cut that, but I'm just going to leave it in. But yeah, this is just, like I said, this movie really isn't a superhero movie. It's more of a crime drama, in my opinion, and it's got some amazing, chase sequences, and, some effects, especially with, like, the hospital blowing up, some amazing acting, but like I said, all of that is overshadowed by just the fantastic storytelling, and the way that this movie isn't just, like, a superhero going after a criminal, it's more realistic. The Joker isn't a supervillain, he's a terrorist, The movie's main villain really isn't, the supervillains, it's the mob and Joker, and, Joker's kind of influence on the mob, and him kind of taking over and becoming, like, the head of the mob. It's really just one of the, in terms of, like, crime dramas, it's one of my all-time favorites, for sure. I've heard people say, like, it's almost like Law and Order, the movie, but that's not a bad thing, because this movie's fantastic, and it's one of, like I said, one of the best crime dramas ever made. And even though I could say it's a great superhero movie, I'm not going to say that because I don't think this is a superhero movie. But that being said, it's still one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. And to close out this video, and also be the final movie we talk about before we get into the top 10, we have Reservoir Dogs at number 11. This is, of course, the fourth of 5 Tarantino movies you will see on this list, making this my second favorite Tarantino movie of all time. And for good reason, too. And it's not just because this is his first ever movie, so it, like, has to be one of his best. I really think this movie is genius, because what this movie does, it's essentially, if you guys don't know, it's, this group of bank robbers who, they don't know each other's names. They go by, Mr. Brown, Mr. Pink, Mr. White, different names, like that, to kind of conceal their identities. But basically it follows them doing this bank heist, and how everything goes wrong in this bank heist, and there's a rat somewhere in the crew, but they don't know who it is. But the thing I love the most about this movie is that it doesn't show the bank heist, or the jewel heist, whatever kind of heist it is. I don't remember. I think it was a jewel heist, actually. But this movie, it shows flashbacks of certain, shootouts with the cops, flashbacks to maybe different shootouts, 3 or 4 times in the movie, but it doesn't actually show the heist itself. And you could say that was because of the budget, because this is Tarantino's first ever movie, and of course he needed to keep the budget, I think, only around, $1 million, so, he couldn't really show it. But I think that adds, an extra, it's genius, and I don't know why, but I just love it. I love the fact that he doesn't show it, because it allows you to kind of make it up in your mind, to kind of, just based on what these characters are saying, they're talking about how horrible it was, how all these characters, oh my god, he got shot, this guy got shot, did you see him, he got blasted, while he was in the car, while he was sitting in the car, and there's there's blood everywhere. So by hearing these characters describe them, it almost you create this image in your head oh my god, this must have been some horrible, horrible event. And the fact that they don't show it, I think just kind of, it makes you just kind of imagine oh my god, it must have been a total bloodbath. It makes you really imagine in your head what it was like, and it's awful. It's more gory and bloody than anything the movie could show you. And maybe I'm just delving too deep into this, but I just really like the fact that they don't show, it lets you kind of be creative, it lets you use your head a little bit, and I think that adds an extra layer of uniqueness to this movie, because by doing that, it allows you to focus on the characters and get to know the characters more, and that way, before the movie comes out and tells you, you can kind of try to figure out, okay, which character was the rat, because you have a suspicion that it's one of the main characters in the scene, because, not every character makes it out of the shootout alive. Some of the characters are shown in the opening diner scene, which is fantastic, and then they're never shown again throughout the movie. So, you think if there's a rat, they're gonna definitely bring it to, they're definitely gonna tell you who it was. So you're thinking, okay, the rat is, I'm almost 100% sure has to be one of these characters that they've brought into the mix again, but you're trying to figure out which one it is, and by, the movie taking the time to get to know its characters, and to kind of show, oh yeah, Mr. White, he has, this layer of humanity to him. He's trying to help out Mr. Orange, and he's trying to comfort him, even though, he's freaking out thinking he's gonna die. He's trying to help comfort him. So you think, okay, I don't know if he would be the rat, because he's a really, he cares about people. He's not the kind of person that would screw these guys over. So it really, like I said, it helps you kind of learn more about these characters, and before you're flat out told who the rat is, it lets you form your own ideas. It makes you think, similar to the way the Hateful Eight try to make, makes you think, okay, who was the one that poisoned the coffee. This movie does it even better, because that part of the movie is only lasts for a half hour, the whole whodunit scenario in that movie. But this movie, really, you have an entire hour before you really learn who the rat is, so you have a lot of time to kind of, build up the suspense. And like I said, the dialogue is fantastic in this movie. The acting is incredible, especially for such a low budget movie like this. And I've rambled on long enough about this one, so we might as well just close out the video. So in closing, guys, this is one of Tarantino's finest movies for sure. The dialogue is fantastic, the cinematography is great. It's got of course the Tarantino trunk shot, where it's the view from inside a trunk looking up. Some as I said earlier, Tarantino-isms that you would find in his movies. The acting is incredible. This is one of his best scripts I think he ever wrote. Prior to this, he wrote Natural Born Killers and True Romance. I think he even sold the rights to those, or he sold the scripts to those movies to fund this one. And all three incredible movies. This one probably being my favorite though, for sure. So it really just goes to show that from pretty much day one, this guy's been a fantastic writer, and he's one of the most unique people in Hollywood for sure. And after directing this, I'm not surprised to see that he went as far as he did, because the script for this movie, the dialogue, everything about it is just fantastic, and it's one of the best movies I think, not even just crime movies, one of the best movies I've ever seen. So there you go, guys. There is part 4 of my top 50 favorite movies of all time. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, the next part will be the final part in this series of 5 videos, and I really hope you guys stick around for that one. That'll probably be a longer one, because I'm going to want to get in depth with a lot of those movies, because, you know, a lot of them, obviously I got to justify why they're in my top 10, of course. But like I said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this part. Let me know what you think of any of the movies on this list, if any of your favorite movies are on here, and I will talk to you guys later. I will see you in the next video, and until part 5, peace out, guys.